I am Roru, one of the ancient sages. Ages ago, we ancient sages built the Temple of Time to protect the entrance to the sacred realm. This is the Chamber of Sages inside the Temple of Light. The Temple of Light, situated in the very center of the sacred realm, is the last stronghold against Ganondorf evil forces. The Master Sword, the evil-destroying sword that you pulled out of the pedestal of time, was the final key to the sacred realm. Link, don't be alarmed. Look at yourself. You look ugly as hell, with a pointy nose. And here's the medallion. The medallion that you just got for free. Because, the Temple of Time is not exactly a temple. And you don't have to do anything.
Anyway, the Temple of Time in Twilight Princess can be considered to be a large improvised temple created by Nintendo. As it is said that this is the same temple we found in Ocarina of Time, to me this is a total different one. The castle of Hyrule is much further away, and in Ocarina of Time the temple lies pretty much next to the castle. But if this is not the same temple, who built it? And why so far away if it is an incredibly holy place for the Hylians? After Ocarina of Time, Link was sent back to his own timeline, and therefore the Temple of Time was not secured from the faces of evil. When Ganondorf was captured, the Dark Interlopers tried to invade the Sacred Realm. They did, and tried whatever they could to grant access to the Triforce that was guarded there. As everyone around Hyrule found out about its existence with the Temple of Time, all the greedy, magical and dark people went on to fight each other, creating such a war that happened even before their time, the Hyrule Civil War. As their leader, Ganondorf, was stuck in prison, they had to come up with a plan for a large war frontal assault. This strategy created the Fused Shadow, a combined artifact of all evil powers. The Temple of Time eventually got attacked by the Dark Interlopers, destroying its entire structure down to its core. The Dark Interlopers went on to almost winning the war, with no hero to stop them, so the three goddesses had to step in to halt evil from winning an unfair battle. The Light Spirits were summoned to stop the Interlopers from entering the Sacred Realm, at the cost of losing the temple. This way, the Sacred Realm had to be replaced to a different location, as this location had to stay top secret to the greedy hearts of men. The temple was rebuilt into the Sacred Grove, the once proud place of what once was the Forest Temple. Why I say that it was built on top of the Forest Temple is the way how by getting to this location, and it's by going through the Lost Woods, with Saria's song, one of the ancient sages, playing in the background by none other than a skull kit. It is heavily implied that this skull kit was the same one from Majora's Mask, as the distorted death of the Hero of Time made it all seem differently. When the new Temple of Time was built in this location, and the Dark Interlopers were punished for their crimes, banished to the Twilight Realm, the Light Spirits had to devise a new plan for a better term of guarding the temple. The Uka, a proud race of the heavens, were summoned by nobody other than Roru to help them create this new safety precaution. Roru was able to turn himself into an owl, and was also able to fly easily to the city in the sky to ask for help. By doing so, the Holy Family of Hyrule, Roru and the Uka, worked together on their bond of friendship to create this new Temple of Time. It would have been too easy to create a new entrance into the temple, and so the Uka worked on a new device called the Dominion Rod that allowed anyone holding it to manipulate statues and the like. The temple created by these three names built their celebrations on the walls, with the other sages including Roru, the language of the past, the language of the birds, written under these statues in case this history was lost in time, and the stone statues of protection were formed to guard the entrance. These stone statues' heads even looked like to have some sort of shape of a gear, and as time passed by and everything seemed to slowly be at peace, Hyrule went through a false sense of security. As Ganondorf 100 or maybe a few hundred years later got his execution punishment, the temple was forgotten in the hopes that nobody was ever going to be finding this temple out somewhere in the woods. But there's still a question to remain. How did the Master Sword get there if the Hero of Time was not around to pull the sword, as young Link placed the sword back in its pedestal once he returned to his own timeline, and that's because Zelda and the rest brought it into the temple to remain there. The Master Sword is a key. Once in its pedestal, it locks the sacred realm for anyone that wants to enter it. And as Link left to search for Navi within the Lost Woods, that same woods that the new Temple of Time was rebuilt in, he did not have that same sacred protection, the Blade of Evil's Bane, with him. This is why I believe why he turned into Astolphos, but I want to do a special video considering the Hero Shade, as I have a lot to say about that character, so stay tuned for that one someday. As the Temple of Time was still in its good state, as Hyrule was not in trouble just yet, the Uka created a new part of the Temple of Time, the time travel portal that kept the temple in its original shape. In Hyrule, the temple over time started to decay very slowly, mixing itself with nature, the exact same thing that happened back with the Forest Temple. But the time portal would act like a defensive time bubble, keeping the temple inside from harm, while outside this bubble, the building gave in and died out. As a new hero would one day pull the sword from its pedestal, as that is what has to happen and will always happen, a destiny shared through time. The temple had to be kept safe from outsiders. The Uka created therefore an entire new dungeon inside this pocket dimension, simply called the Temple of Time, to keep outsiders from getting in. Unfortunately, however, that wouldn't last long, as evil somehow still managed to get into this pocket dimension through the power of Twilight, summoned by the dark twisted Zend, and these creatures slowly created this dungeon into a nest of monsters. Armogoma, a spider that lived inside this temple, stayed there for hundreds of years, just like his predecessor once did in the Deku Tree. As Gomas are parasites, feeding off from any life force that they can find, Armogoma had enough time to evolve into a large spider, unlike his counterparts. How did the spider get inside the temple, you say? Just like Ganondorf placed a curse onto the Deku Tree, this same curse was done by Zend onto the Temple of Time, creating some sort of tradition within the evil side of the Legend of Zelda. Now to get back to this dungeon. The mirror shards were created by none other than Zend because he broke them into pieces, but he was not the one that placed them inside the other locations. It were the sages that did this. Only they knew about the locations where these shards were found, except the one found by Yito from the Snow Peak ruins. What this means to me is that technically, the sages actually created problems for Link to solve, as Armogoma grew inside the Temple of Time by the shard, which must have been placed there by Roru himself when Ganondorf was banished to the Twilight Realm, with the other shard placed inside the city in the sky, brought there by the Uka to guard. This same scenario happened to the Gorons back at Death Mountain, when Darbus transformed into a huge pyro monster, and therefore I see a pattern here created by pretty much stupid decisions led by the sages. They should have known that these fragments would have had some type of dark power once they told Link the story of the evil Ganondorf, yet they still placed them in these locations. It's most likely just a game mechanic for us players to go to these locations and beat these temples, but lore-wise it seems that it wasn't a great decision by these sages. As Ocarina of Time was supposed to have a light-themed dungeon, it's even in the name, Temple of Time, Nintendo decided to create this temple many years later in Twilight Princess instead. A good addition for me, you might say, as the temple wasn't all that bad. It had some cool mechanics, and my favorite part might have been the guardian that the sages placed inside the temple, Darknut, to confront the hero as a guardian to the Dominion Rod. Darknuts are always evil and having an evil affinity, but in this case it felt for me that the sages placed the guardian there to test the strength of the hero of Twilight to see if he was capable of defeating him. Overall, this temple to me was the addition we never got in Ocarina of Time. It's a new temple and not the one from Ocarina of Time. It was the old forest temple that was clearly inspired by A Link to the Past, as there we can pull the sword out of the Lost Woods as well. The Skull Kid was the kid from Majora's Mask, and it was the Hero of Time that made that decision to put the temple somewhere else, so that the new hero would rise one day to protect and save Hyrule. Hello everybody, thank you for watching this video. What do you think about the Temple of Time, and did you think it was a nice addition to Twilight Princess? Also, like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet, because that will also obviously help me a lot. And I will see you guys in the next video. So, bye bye.